Alright, here we are. Batman is a go. Moebius models, 1/8 scale Batman. Just started putting it together. First, of course, assembly and taking care of all the seam lines. This is going to be the quick part. Most of this video, or series of videos more than likely, is going to be covering the paint job, because assembly, really no issues that I could foresee. Put the legs together, put the arms together, put the body together, stick the head on, boom, there, you're done. Nothing really about accurizing this or changing his height or weight. Goes together fairly cleanly. Of course, there is a very strong seam line going through about everything. Very hard plastic to this kit. It did not melt very well. Usually I can fill in some of the seam lines by putting on a lot of Tamiya extra thin cement and squishing the pieces closed, but didn't really work on this one, so we're going to be using a lot of putty. Squadron green putty for the first pass, and then it's going to take about at least 3 coats more than likely. After this is full, I'll switch to some finer Tamiya putty, because obviously a seam line or a gap going down the leg is not going to work. The only modification I made to the kit are these screws. Drilled a hole in the bottom of each foot and added a screw. The reason for that is, pardon me, the base. So this is the first of a whole series of like 6 kits from the 1966 Batman series that are coming out, and they're all going to form, the bases are all going to form a large bat symbol. And because of that, and because these are going to be coming out over the next several years, I don't want to, I'm going to paint the base, but trying to paint it exactly the same way for all the figures when they eventually come out is going to be very difficult. So my plan is to attach these guys to their bases temporarily by using screws. I'll just put it in and attach it with a bolt on the bottom, and then 5 years down the line or whenever, when all the kits are finally released, I'll repaint all the bases so they all match and everything looks hunky-dory all together. So there's the reason for that. But we're going to let the putty dry, probably overnight. It's getting a little bit late, and we'll sand, reapply putty, sand, and so on and so on and so forth. This is not the exciting part. Okay, we got some sexy looking Batman legs. Virtually done. Well, actually we got a ways to go still, but they're looking pretty good so far. Filled them twice with putty, sanded them down each time, and now I put on a light coat of primer. By the way, this is the AK Interactive primer. Someone recommended it, and I thought I'd give it a try. Not too sure about it. It sands pretty well, but it comes off really easy. In fact, if I... Ooh, that's not good. I think for the final primer, I'll go with the all-clad primer on this thing. But anyway, the point of the primer on this point is to look for any gaps or seam lines that I missed, because the primer is a nice matte finish, and those things come out really well. So then I have to go back and sand things down. You can see some areas here where there's primer still in the recesses. That means there's little divots there that I have to fill in. A couple ways you can figure this out. The easiest way is if you have a foam sanding stick. When you're sanding round surfaces like this, you don't want to go like this, because you're going to flatten them out. But if you put pressure on either side of it, you can sand it down. And again, wherever you see primer remain, you know you have to sand a little bit further or fill that area in. The other way you can do it in a case like this is with one of these. Now, there is a tool that looks just like this called, I believe, a flex file or a flexi file. Costs like $40 or $50 plus the sandpaper, and this is exactly what it is. It's made for sanding round surfaces. I did a video ages ago on this thing that I made myself. You can make one yourself for about $2. Just get yourself some brass tubing, bend it into a U shape, Put some push pins on inside the tube, and just cut yourself a little strip of sandpaper and glue loops on the ends like that, and just put it around your push pins, and so now you have a flexible sanding stick, so it can form around the surfaces without putting undue pressure on any single spot, so you have less to worry about flattening anything. And I can see, like, right where I'm standing here, that I'm getting a line here, so I know that's where the seam line originally was. So I'm going to go around this whole thing, sand it down, find some areas. Perfect example right there. You can see where the primer is still there after sanding it, so I know there's a little divot there. So either continue sanding until it's gone completely, or add putty. So just doing a lot of this, and this is just the legs. I still got the body and the arms to do, but we will continue to struggle on here. Just about done with the first round of sanding and filling on a majority of the model. I think the legs are done, but I still got to do the body and the arms. I haven't done the primering and double checking, triple checking steps yet, but we're looking pretty good. Now, I filled most of this with Squadron Green putty, but for the arms I needed something else. I would rather have left the arms off, but the seam line here on the shoulders was a bit too much, so I needed to fill that up. On the legs, it's not that big of an issue because it's a tighter fit, and also it's going into his fancy underwear, so since it's two different pieces of fabric, a small seam line there is fine, but not so with the shirt. But instead of using the Squadron putty, I used epoxy putty, and the reason for that is because I don't want the entire seam line to disappear. This is still a shirt that's going to have seams on it, so I'm going to leave a little bit of it there, and the epoxy putty allows me to carve it. So I'm just going to go along with the toothpick and just work it really well in that groove so it's not perfectly flat. And I don't have to worry about the back too much here because of the cape. Oops. But anyway, that'll give me a nice seam line of a shirt. Of course, you can just work over this entirely as well. Also, the only other, well, actually, only there are two modifications I made. I sanded down his little bat symbol breastplate here a bit because it was sticking out way too far. I could probably sand it down even a little bit more, but I'm going to leave it like this. But in scale, it was probably like standing out like 1/4 of an inch. So it was just, it's just a patch on his shirt. It's not a steel or solid object that sticks out. Also, the hand here, I thought I was going to have to carve this out entirely and rework it up. The problem here is it was totally flat, which I don't get because this hand they sculpted with like actual fingers on the inside. This one is just a flat area, which I kind of understand why they did that because you need to fit the Batarang in there, but it looks terrible. I mean, there's no details on the inside of the fingers. Would have been a lot better doing it this way. So, but I just took the X-Acto knife and kind of carved it out and smoothed it down, which is enough. Once I paint it up, it'll be hidden enough for with the Batarang in. Which way does it go? It goes that way. And I'm probably going to have to attach this just because it does need a little bit of putty work to fill in there perfectly. So I'm going to have to attach the Batarang as well before we get to the primer and the paint. So it's been about a month and a half or two since I've touched this kit. I had to get the Lost in Space robot done and out of the way before I can really start on this. So I was just sanding and puttying in my spare time whenever I had it, and that's been the whole process so far. Just going back and applying putty, sanding it down, putting a layer of primer on it, seeing where there's still gaps, repeating the whole process several times, probably about 4 or 5 times until I finally, hopefully, filled everything up. I need to wash everything, give it one more primer job. There may be a nick here and there to fix, but we are virtually ready to get onto the paint. Also, since that time, I finally picked up the Batman Blu-ray series that came out recently, and really great. If it's a pricey investment, but it's really great finally seeing it show in high def and real colors rather than some really crappy image on YouTube. But since I've seen it, they maybe changed some of the items on the kit here. First of all, the bat symbol on his chest, this was raised, and after seeing the show in high def, it looks like it's just like a vinyl sticker stuck to his outfit. So I sanded that all the way down, and I just left a little bit of a ridge so I know where to put it at the end. Also, the seam line I put in here is actually reversed. It's actually, it sticks out on the costume, but I don't think that's a major deal. At least you can see it. I saw some other people building this kit where they just left it smooth, and it looked weird to be having without having a seam line there. So I'm gonna leave the seam line. The only thing I messed up on were the gloves. There's a seam line running down the gloves around here, and my zeal, I filled that in. Not supposed to do that. The seam line on the gloves is actually supposed to be represented the seam line on the gloves itself that he wore, and it goes around the fingers here as well. However, it wasn't very in scale, so I'm not too overly concerned that I filled it up. It's not a major detail that will be obviously missing when we get to the final step. And we're going to get to the final step, or excuse me, the beginning step, I guess, second beginning step, the actual painting. We're going to do that in the next video, and I know this is probably a boring video to start off with, it just me sanding and looking at the kit, but I got something new I'm going to be trying, and the first thing we're going to be painting is the face, and I just want to leave that all in its own video since that's going to be very long and detailed as we both experiment with something new. So Batman just needs a bath, and I think we're ready to go.